Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Florida Relocation Guide. Again, I am your host, Adam Hancock. And in today's video, I wanted to walk through a few really important and relevant issues right now with the real estate market in general, but especially in the state of Florida. The juxtaposition between interest rates and possible positive demand, all the stuff that's come out in Southwest Florida about these price decreases, how to think about that, expanding territories and fringe cities, or even going to hit updated version of the Florida homeowners insurance topic. So I hope you find a ton of value in this video, and let's get started. All right, the first sandbox I wanted to kind of play in this general topic arena is basically what the title suggests. And that's the juxtaposition between the interest rates on one side, or where they currently stand on one side, and the demand. And maybe taking an angle of this as a potential positive for a level of the population. I was talking to a client a couple weeks ago, I think, that was sitting in that 3.5% to 5% down payment range. And they were viewing this market as interesting to them because, in this kind of market, even if you're putting 20% down, but definitely less than that, you can have real conversations because buyers are not beating down the doors like they were a couple of years ago to sellers themselves and to new home builders. You can be a little bit more poised in the decision. You can shop your options. And more importantly, you might be able to get incentives via builder or cash given to you from a seller, because if they give you $7K, a lot of people with large equity positions it's just coming from their net. They're just taking home less, but they're not giving you necessarily cash from their pocket. But $7K to a buyer that's putting 3.5% down or something like that changes everything, right? Because the liquidity for a new buyer or move-up buyer might be a lot less. So this is a life changer for them. But in a market where, they inject, something into the market to help it via lowering interest rates or something like that, then the demand rushes back in from all these people that weren't in these situations. And this kind of buyer finds themselves in a position that is incredibly hard to compete, especially if you're in the Southwest Florida, Tampa Bay, Sarasota, Naples metro. Okay, area number 2 is kind of an interesting thought exercise, more or less. I'm not even sure what side of this I technically fall on, and I'm not sure there's an actual answer, true or false. But that's the idea surrounding price decreases. There was an article or video or something that came out recently that was talking about ranking cities around the country that were poised for these big drop-offs in prices upcoming in the real estate market. Sarasota, Florida, where our headquarters is based, just happens, I think, to be number 2 in the entire country for a lowering of prices over the near future. So you kind of have two sides of that coin. You have the interest rates and the demand that we kind of built on top, right? So keep that in your head. But the first side of the coin, you say, okay, interest rates, I'm not sure, are going to materially decrease soon. So kind of sitting there. I'm not sure they're going to necessarily go increase at a large amount either. So if I make a decision, in essence, in 6 months from now versus now, am I really getting killed by interest rates? Maybe not. Well, you could also say that if prices are about to decrease, and that's what everyone's talking about, I might have a huge opportunity to double up. Interest rate doesn't really change that much. And if I can save $100K or $150,000 on a home, for that same buyer I described, absolute game changer, potentially, because the percentage of down payment is based on principal. It's based on the cost of the home. So it really starts to matter on how much liquidity is necessary on closing costs and down payment if the house costs less. Well, then I was thinking about it more, and I was like, okay, so if that's true, I'm kind of a patience person. So I was like, that's interesting. I think that'd be something to relate to the public. But also on the other side of the coin, you could say, all right, so say that does happen. Say that these prices decrease dynamically over the rest of the year or the next year or so. Well, do you have a level of the population? This is, again, a thought exercise, but do you have a level of the population where the interest rates were not the issue, right? So they were never worried about that. Cash buyers, investors, never worried about it anyway. So the only thing they're waiting for is to get in a better equity position, because if they're investing or they're a cash buyer, then they have a lot more control. And they also, if you're an investor, you need higher margin. So you need everything to cost less anyway. So if they really think that's going to happen, they're 100% waiting for that because they don't need to do anything. Say they drop the prices, keep the interest rates, then all of a sudden, are we back to that first-time home buyer competing with skilled investors buying similar priced properties, but for different reasons? Okay, then as I continue to think through this, I start looking at geography. And when you're sitting back and you're looking at, you're watching these videos and you're watching the news and you're reading and you're thinking about the real estate market potential hot buttons, interest rates and the pricing and the timing and all these kind of things, it feels like it's one big thing. It feels like these issues exist across the board. But in actuality, when you take like Southwest Florida, all the extremes of the decreases and why these cities rank like that are 100% valid, but they don't affect every part of the city the same exact way. So the parts that are going to decrease probably should have never went that high. So think about the parts that are taking these huge decreases, artificially went too high too quick. It's probably the most popular in vogue areas technically. Well, we've been seeing a lot of people, take Sarasota, Florida, if you're familiar with the area in general, we've been seeing a lot of people go in the fringes, Parrish, Southern Palmetto, South Venice. We've been seeing a lot of people go into those territories. Well, those territories were not affected like, middle of Sarasota, Lakewood Ranch, Florida, these big suburbs. They didn't go up that fast. So they also can't brunt a decrease because they never went the increase so high that the huge decrease was necessary. They probably weren't talking about these general areas. So if you peel back like, okay, what's relevant, then in certain areas like a Parrish, Florida, interest rates are still a thing, but what maybe you don't have that are relevant as variables to consider is maybe you don't have a waiting for a huge drop off in prices because you didn't have the increase the same way. So if you take that out, then it's just an interest rate thing. And maybe you also don't have a rush on a crazy demand. You drop interest rates to 3%. I don't think that necessarily makes fringe cities go crazy, crazy, crazy. So you might be left with just interest rate, and just the current market might not be that different from the market a year from now. And you might have all the cards a lot of the cards on the table right now. So just something to think about is the area you're looking at, is it hyper relevant currently to the hysteria that exists in the general real estate market? All right, the final area I wanted to cover very briefly in this video is about insurance. Home insurance and Florida, not the most favorite topic of all time right now, but I feel like if you're going to work through these issues and you're trying to make a decision and you're worried about the sensitive points, this has to be a part of the conversation. I'm not sure I'm the best mouthpiece necessarily as a subject matter expert to cover the latest and greatest for insurance because it's a moving target. So in order to solve that problem, I am going to pan to an insurance professional that very, very knowledgeable, that I think will be really helpful to give you her take. And then we'll provide all of her contact information as well. And then we'll conclude.
Well, thanks, Adam. We know insurance is not the most fun topic to talk about, but it is an integral part of homeownership. And given the latest headlines, we think you deserve to have an understanding of what's going on. I'm Julia, a top-rated independent agent located here in Florida, and I want to break down all of the headlines you've been seeing and what it might mean for you. Headline number 1, Hurricane Ian. As a Florida native, we in Florida understand, as well as the insurance carriers, the risk of hurricanes. And we know that it's a price to pay to live in paradise. By the time you watch this video, the recent data is showing that 80 to 90% of all Hurricane Ian claims have been closed, meaning you're less likely to run into that as an obstacle to getting your dream house. Headline number 2, insurance carriers are leaving the state. Yes, this is happening. However, there are a number of regional carriers that remain in the state and have for decades. With that said, there are also a number of companies that are popping up, including being backed by other industries like technology. Headline number 3, insurance rates in Florida are skyrocketing. Yes, this is fact. However, it's important to understand the context of where things are. Now, there are a number of things that contribute to where we are at today. You have the storms, the claims, the fraud, the litigation, the roofs, the AOBs, things that you might have read about already. However, one of the big pressing issues where all of this comes into play is what's called reinsurance. Insurance carriers have their own insurance policies. Those companies are called reinsurers. They insure the insurance companies. The insurance companies' rates for reinsurance due to all of the additional risk that they have seen has increased dramatically, and companies either choose not to pay that and pull out of the state. They can't afford to pay that because the state has not granted them the ability to raise their rates, or they pay it and those rate increases are passed down to the end user, you. So that is where we're at with it. We're hoping between some of the special sessions that have happened and increasing competition amongst carriers, we hope to see this go to a place where we have the traditional inflationary rate increases year over year. Of course, if you have any specific or additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We are always here to educate to make sure that you are making the best decision possible. That's my take.
All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's video of the Florida Relocation Guide. Again, my name is Adam Hancock. I hope this added you a ton of value, at least gave you some things to think about. If you enjoyed it and you're not already subscribed, please hit the subscribe button just so you can see what we're releasing next. Also, like the video, that helps us out. Any real estate assistance, you want a conversation, agent assistance, anything in between in the entire state of Florida. I own a brokerage called the Sunshine State Company. I think personally the best team in the entire state of Florida, the smartest team, more importantly. All of our contact information will be below. We'll help you in any way we can. And lastly, we have free relocation guides. We have some free analytical tools. So there's more in that website, the sunshineStateCo.com, available to you beyond just speaking with us. So check all that out. Thank you so much for watching today's video. We'll see you on the next one.